The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window of our Charlotte townhouse, casting long shadows that seemed to mirror the darkness I'd lived in for 17 years. I stood at the counter, preparing breakfast with the mechanical precision of someone who'd learned that any deviation from routine could trigger an explosion. My name is Luca Martinez, and at 40 years old, I had become an expert at surviving rather than living. "Where's my coffee?" Marcus's voice cut through the morning quiet like a blade. Even after all these years, I still flinched at that tone, the one that preceded either a lecture about my inadequacies or another financial restriction disguised as protecting our future. "Coming right up," I replied, keeping my voice neutral, emotionless. I'd learned that showing any feeling, happiness, sadness, even indifference, could be weaponized against me. Marcus sat at the dining table, scrolling through his phone with the air of someone who owned the world. In many ways, he owned mine. Every bank account, every credit card, every financial decision, all controlled by him. For our own good, he'd say, "You're terrible with money, Luca. Remember what happened with the house?" The house. Always the house. 17 years ago, I'd made the mistake of trusting Marcus with overseeing our home renovation. We'd hired contractors, planned our dream home, invested everything. But Marcus had handled the payments, and the contractors had disappeared with our money. We lost the house, our savings, everything. Marcus never let me forget it was my fault for not being more involved, more careful, more competent. What Marcus didn't know, what he could never know, was that I had discovered the truth 3 years after it happened. I poured his coffee exactly how he liked it, 2 sugars, no cream, temperature just below scalding. As I set it down, his hand grabbed my wrist. "The credit card statement came yesterday," he said, his grip tightening. $40 at Target? What could you possibly need that costs $40? "Household supplies," I said quietly. "Cleaning products, toilet paper." "We have a budget, Luca. $30 for household supplies." "You went over by $10. His fingers dug deeper into my skin. "That's coming out of your personal allowance next month." My personal allowance. $50 a month for anything I might want or need beyond the approved expenses. $50 that Marcus monitored like a hawk, questioning every penny. "I understand," I whispered. He released my wrist, leaving red marks that would fade to bruises by evening. Another set to add to the collection I carefully hid beneath long sleeves, even in Charlotte's humid summers. "I'm having clients over tonight," Marcus announced, returning to his phone. "Important ones. Make sure dinner is perfect. That salmon dish they loved last time. And wear something decent, not those ratty clothes you always slouch around in." I nodded, already calculating the grocery costs in my head, wondering how I'd make it work within the approved budget when salmon alone would cost $30. "And Luca?" He looked up, his brown eyes cold despite his handsome smile. "Try not to embarrass me this time. Remember what happened at the Morrisons' dinner party?" The Morrisons' dinner party, where I dared to laugh at someone's joke without Marcus's permission. He'd spent the entire drive home listing every social mistake I'd made, every moment I'd failed to represent him properly. The silent treatment lasted a week after that. "I'll be perfect," I promised, hating how small my voice sounded. Marcus stood, straightening his expensive suit, one of many in his extensive wardrobe, while I made do with thrift store finds he deemed appropriate for someone understanding. "You better be," he said, planting a possessive kiss on my forehead that felt more like a brand than affection. "Remember, everything you have is because of me. Without me, you'd be nothing. You'd have nothing." As the door closed behind him, I stood alone in our kitchen, his kitchen, really, since nothing was truly mine. 17 years of this. 6,205 days of being told I was worthless, incompetent, a burden he graciously carried. I walked to the hallway mirror and stared at my reflection. 40 years old, but I looked 50. Gray streaking through hair that had once been lustrous black. Lines etched deep around green eyes that had forgotten how to sparkle. I was disappearing, bit by bit, day by day. But behind that broken exterior, behind the carefully maintained facade of the victim Marcus needed me to be, burned a secret that would have sent him into a rage beyond anything I'd endured. 3 years after we lost the house, after Marcus had solidified his narrative of my incompetence, I'd received a call from a private investigator. He'd been hired by another family who'd been swindled by the same contractors. During his investigation, he'd uncovered something extraordinary. The contractors had been part of a massive fraud ring, and there was documented proof that Marcus had been involved. The evidence was damning. Bank transfers to offshore accounts in Marcus's name. Emails between him and the contractors planning the scam. Forged documents with my signature that he'd submitted to insurance companies. Marcus hadn't just let us get swindled, he'd orchestrated it, planning to collect both the insurance money and lawsuit settlements while leaving me to bear the blame. But the plan had gone wrong. The contractors got greedy, kept all the money, and disappeared before Marcus could execute the rest of his scheme. We've lost everything, but Marcus had managed to spin it into my failure, my shame, my debt to him for saving us from complete ruin. The private investigator had given me everything: documents, recordings, proof that could not only clear my name but could result in serious legal consequences for Marcus. The evidence was worth something else too. The insurance companies and courts would award massive settlements to victims of the fraud ring. My claim alone would be worth $2.1 million. $2.1 million. For 14 years, I'd hidden this evidence. First, out of fear, Marcus's control was so complete I couldn't imagine escaping. Then, out of strategy. I needed to wait for the right moment, build my case, document everything. Every bruise photographed in secret. Every cruel word recorded on a hidden device. Every financial restriction documented and filed away. The basement storage unit Marcus never knew I'd rented became my vault. Behind boxes of Christmas decorations and a climate-controlled facility across town, I'd built my case for freedom. Bank statements showing his hidden assets. Photos of injuries. Recordings of his threats. And at the center of it all, the contractor fraud files that would be his undoing. The salmon was perfect, pink in the center, crispy skin, presented on our best china with a lemon butter sauce I'd perfected over countless dinner parties where I played the role of the devoted partner. Marcus's clients, the Washingtons, sat at our dining table singing praises of the meal while I served in silence, invisible as always. "Marcus, you're so lucky," Mrs. Washington gushed, taking another bite. "Luca is such a treasure. My partner can barely boil water." Marcus laughed, that charming laugh he perfected for public consumption. "Yes, well, cooking is about the only thing they're good at. Isn't that right, darling?" The casual cruelty, delivered with a smile. I forced my lips to curve upward. "I do my best." "Don't be so modest," Mr. Washington said kindly. "This sauce is restaurant quality. Have you ever thought about opening your own place?" I felt Marcus tense beside me. "Oh no," he answered for me, his hand finding my knee under the table, squeezing hard enough to bruise. "Luca doesn't have a head for business. We learned that the hard way, didn't we, sweetheart? Remember the house disaster? There it was. The story that defined me in every social setting. Marcus's version, where my incompetence cost us everything. Besides," Marcus continued, his grip tightening, "I take care of everything Luca needs. Don't I, darling?" "Yes," I whispered, the word ash in my mouth. "Everything." Later that night, after the Washingtons left with promises of future dinners and business deals, Marcus cornered me in the kitchen. "Restaurant quality?" he mocked, his voice dripping with disdain. "Did you put ideas in their heads? Make me look like I'm holding you back?" "No, I didn't say anything." "You didn't have to. Your pathetic puppy dog eyes said it all." He grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at him. "You think you could run a restaurant? You can't even manage a grocery budget without overspending." "I'm sorry," I said, the words automatic after so many years. "You're always sorry." He released me with a push that sent me stumbling against the counter. "Clean this mess up. I'm going to bed." And Luca? Don't even think about joining me tonight. You can sleep in the guest room. Maybe a night alone will help you remember your place. The guest room. My punishment space, with its uncomfortable mattress and drafty windows. But as Marcus's footsteps faded upstairs, I felt relief rather than hurt. The guest room meant privacy. It meant I could slip out. At 2 a.m., I made my pilgrimage to the storage unit. The security guard, Jerome, knew me by now, the person who came at odd hours to check on family heirlooms. He never asked questions, just nodded as I passed. In Unit 247, surrounded by the evidence of my suffering and Marcus's crimes, I allowed myself to feel the rage I suppressed every other moment of my life. I pulled out the newest addition to my collection, photos from my phone of the bruises on my wrist and knee from today, carefully dated and documented. The contractor files sat in their fireproof safe, patient and powerful. I opened them sometimes, just to remind myself they were real. Bank statements showing Marcus's hidden transfers. Emails where he discussed the fraud in detail. The smoking gun, a recorded phone call where he laughed about how he'd pin it all on that stupid partner of mine. That stupid partner who'd discovered everything. Who'd spent 14 years building an airtight case while playing the perfect victim. I pulled out my laptop, connecting to the storage facility's Wi-Fi, another thing Marcus didn't know existed. My secret email account opened to show new messages from Sarah Chen, the attorney I'd been corresponding with for the past year. She specialized in financial abuse cases and had reviewed my evidence. Luca, her latest email read, "The statute of limitations on the fraud is approaching. If we're going to act, it needs to be soon. The evidence you have is overwhelming. Not only can we pursue civil action, but the FBI's white-collar crime division would be very interested in this case. Marcus could face serious federal charges." Federal charges. The words made my heart race with equal parts fear and anticipation. I typed my reply carefully. I understand. I need more time to ensure everything is in place. He's escalating, and I'm documenting everything. When I leave, I need to make sure I can never be forced back. Because that was Marcus's final hold on me, the complete financial control. Every asset was in his name. Every account required his permission. Even my cell phone was on his plan, monitored and restricted. If I left now, I'd have nothing but the clothes on my back. But with the contractor fraud evidence, with the $2.1 million settlement that would follow, I could disappear. I could rebuild. I could finally, truly be free. I spent another hour organizing new evidence, updating my timeline, preparing for the moment I knew was coming, the moment when Marcus would finally push too far, when the mask would slip in front of the wrong people, when I could strike without mercy. 3 months later, the moment arrived at the most public, most humiliating venue possible, Marcus's company gala. The Queen's Crown Hotel ballroom glittered with Charlotte's elite, 500 of Marcus's colleagues, clients, and competitors gathered to celebrate his promotion to senior partner. I stood beside him in a dress he'd chosen, hair styled exactly as he'd specified, playing my role as the supportive partner. "Smile," he hissed in my ear as photographers captured us. "Try to look like you belong here." I smiled until my cheeks ached, shook hands with people who looked for me, made small talk when addressed directly but otherwise remained silent as trained. Marcus was in his element, commanding the room with his charisma, accepting congratulations with false humility. "And of course," he said during his speech, gesturing to me, "I couldn't have done this without my patient partner, who stood by me through everything, even when I probably didn't deserve it." The crowd laughed at his self-deprecation. They didn't know it was the truest thing he'd ever said publicly. The trouble started during dinner. I'd been seated at Marcus's table with his most important clients and the other senior partners. The conversation turned to investments, real estate, success stories. "What about you, Luca?" asked Jennifer Morrison, one of the few people who ever acknowledged my existence. "Marcus mentioned you once had ambitions in real estate. Do you still invest?" Before I could answer, Marcus laughed, that cruel laugh I knew too well. "Invest? Jennifer, Luca can barely balance a checkbook. That's why I handle all our finances. Now Marcus, Mr. Harrison, the managing partner, said with a frown, surely that's a bit harsh. No, it's true, Marcus continued, emboldened by wine and audience. 17 years ago, Luca nearly destroyed us with a terrible real estate decision. Trusted the wrong contractors, lost everything. If I hadn't stepped in to save us from complete bankruptcy, who knows where we'd be. That must have been difficult, Jennifer said softly, looking at me with sympathy. Marcus wasn't done. The story grew with each telling, and tonight, with his promotion confirmed and alcohol flowing, he reached new heights of cruelty. Difficult? It was a disaster. Luca signed contracts without reading them, handed over money without receipts, ignored every red flag. He turned to me with mock concern. Tell them, darling. Tell them how you nearly ruined us. 500 pairs of eyes turned to me. In the glittering ballroom light, I saw my moment, not the one I'd planned, but the one presented. You're right, I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. I did trust the wrong person. Marcus's smile flickered, sensing a shift he didn't understand. I trusted you, I continued, standing slowly. I trusted you when you said you'd handle the contractor payments. I trusted you when you said the money was transferred properly. I trusted you when you told me it was all my fault. Luca, Marcus's voice held warning, but I was beyond his reach now. What I didn't trust was my instinct when the private investigator contacted me 3 years later. I pulled out my phone, not the one Marcus monitored, but the one I'd hidden for years. When he showed me the evidence that you had orchestrated the entire fraud with those contractors. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Marcus's face went from red to white. You're having some kind of episode, he said loudly, reaching for my arm. The stress. I stepped back, continuing. Bank transfers to offshore accounts in your name, Marcus. Emails between you and the contractors. Forged documents with my signature. I looked directly at Mr. Harrison. Your senior partner didn't just let us get swindled. He orchestrated it for insurance fraud. I have proof. This is ridiculous. Marcus shouted, but people were already pulling out phones, recording. They're lying. They're mentally unstable. Am I? I pulled up the email from Sarah Chen on my phone, projecting my voice so everyone could hear. Then why did my attorney file federal charges this morning? Why is the FBI's white-collar crime division so interested in the evidence I've provided? Marcus lunged for me then, his mask completely shattered. You stupid. Security intervened before he could reach me, but not before everyone saw his true face, the rage, the violence, the real Marcus behind the charming facade. 17 years, I said, my voice steady as security held him back. 17 years of bruises, control, and humiliation. 17 years of being told I was nothing without you. I looked him directly in the eye. Turns out, you were nothing without my silence. The ballroom erupted into chaos, but I walked out with my head high, leaving Marcus behind to face the questions, the cameras, the collapse of his carefully constructed image. My phone, my real phone, buzzed continuously as I made my way to the hotel lobby where Sarah Chen waited. That was quite the performance, she said, a slight smile playing at her lips. Not exactly what we planned, but effective. He forced my hand, I replied, still shaking from adrenaline. The public humiliation, using the same story to destroy me in front of everyone, I couldn't take it anymore. Well, the timing works in our favor. The FBI agents are ready to move. She handed me a card. Agent Rivera wants to speak with you first thing tomorrow. Tonight, you're staying at the safe house we arranged. The safe house, a nondescript apartment in a different part of Charlotte where Marcus couldn't find me. Where I could finally sleep without fear. What about the evidence? I asked. Already in federal custody. We moved it from your storage unit this afternoon, right after you texted me from the Gala. Sarah's expression turned serious. Luca, what you did tonight, going public, means there's no going back. Marcus will try to destroy you. He's been destroying me for 17 years, I said. The only difference is now everyone can see it. My phone buzzed with a notification. A video of the confrontation had already been posted on social media. Senior partner exposed for fraud at company Gala, read the caption. It had 10,000 views in just 30 minutes. We need to control the narrative, Sarah said, leading me to her car. Tomorrow, we hold a press conference. Your story needs to be told properly, with all the context. As we drove through Charlotte streets, I watched my old life recede in the rearview mirror. 17 years in that townhouse, 17 years of careful submission, 17 years of hidden strength, all leading to this moment. The next morning came quickly. Agent Rivera, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes, reviewed my evidence with the thoroughness of someone who'd seen too many financial crimes to be surprised. This is extensive, she said, flipping through documents. The contractor fraud alone would be enough for federal charges, but combined with the insurance fraud, the forgery, the identity theft, Mr. Brennan is looking at serious time. Marcus Brennan. Hearing his full name in this official context made him seem smaller somehow, reduced from the omnipotent controller of my life to just another criminal in the system. What about the financial abuse? I asked. The control, the restrictions? That's where the civil case comes in, Sarah interjected. The divorce filing includes economic abuse, coercive control, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. With your documentation, the photos, recordings, financial records, we have an incredibly strong case. How much? I asked, though the money had never been the point. The contractor fraud settlement alone is $2.1 million. But with the divorce settlement, considering the hidden assets we've uncovered and the abuse factors, you're looking at potentially double that. Double. After 17 years of begging for grocery money, of having a $50 monthly allowance, of being told I was financially incompetent, I would have more money than I'd ever dreamed of. There's something else, Agent Rivera said, pulling out her tablet. Mr. Brennan has been very busy since last night. He's already trying to move assets, close accounts, transfer property. He's also hired James Thornton. Thornton, Charlotte's most notorious defense attorney, known for getting the guilty off on technicalities. Let him, Sarah said confidently. We have 17 years of evidence. Thornton's good, but he's not a magician. The press conference that afternoon was held at Sarah's law firm. I sat at a table flanked by Sarah and Agent Rivera, facing a room full of reporters who'd been following the story since the Gala video went viral. My name is Luca Martinez, I began, my voice steady despite the cameras. For 17 years, I was a victim of financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and coercive control. Last night, I finally found the courage to speak my truth. I told them everything, the isolation, the financial control, the constant humiliation. I showed them selected evidence, photos of bruises, recordings of Marcus's threats, documents showing the fraud. The reporters were riveted, their cameras capturing every word. Mr. Brennan didn't just steal money, I concluded. He stole 17 years of my life. But today, I'm taking it back. The questions came fast. When did you discover the fraud? Why did you wait so long to come forward? What do you say to other victims in similar situations? To the last question, I looked directly into the cameras. You are not alone. You are not crazy. And you are stronger than you know. Document everything. Find safe people to trust. And when the moment comes, and it will come, be ready to reclaim your life. The next weeks passed in a blur of legal proceedings, media attention, and Marcus's increasingly desperate attempts to salvage his reputation. But the internet never forgets, and the Gala video had evolved into a viral sensation with 58 million views and counting. Comments poured in from around the world. 17 years? Luca is stronger than any superhero. Marcus Brennan is what happens when narcissism meets stupidity. That moment when he lunged at them, chills. Pure evil. Luca said you were nothing without my silence, and I felt that in my soul. But the real devastation came from the investigation. Agent Rivera's team had uncovered more than even I knew. Marcus hadn't just defrauded us with the contractor scheme, he'd been embezzling from his company for years, using his position to hide the theft. The senior partners who'd celebrated his promotion were now distancing themselves at light speed. I watched from my safe house apartment as the news reported each development. Brennan suspended pending investigation. FBI raids Brennan's office, home. Multiple victims come forward in Brennan fraud case. That last one surprised me. 3 other families had been involved in similar contractor schemes, all connected to Marcus, all thinking they were alone in their loss. Sarah called me after each revelation. The criminal case is rock solid. He's looking at 15 to 20 years minimum. The civil case. Luca, he had more assets than we thought. Offshore accounts, shell companies, hidden real estate. Your settlement is going to be substantial. But Marcus wasn't going down without a fight. His attorney, Thornton, went on the offensive, trying to paint me as a vindictive partner seeking revenge for a failed relationship. My client admits to marital problems, Thornton told reporters, but these criminal allegations are fantasies created by a scorned partner. Luca Martinez has a history of mental health issues and financial irresponsibility. It might have worked, except I'd prepared for this too. Within hours of Thornton's statement, Sarah released recordings of Marcus admitting to the fraud, discussing it in detail with the contractors, laughing about how he blamed everything on me. The most damning recording was one I'd captured just 6 months ago, when Marcus had been drunk and boastful. You want to know the truth, Luca? Fine. I set the whole thing up. Those contractors? They were my connection. We were going to split the insurance money 3 ways. But they got greedy, took it all, and left me with nothing but you to blame it on. And you were so pathetic, so eager to please, you believed every word. 17 years, and you still think it's your fault. That's the real joke. When that recording hit the news, Marcus's remaining supporters evaporated. His company fired him officially, citing moral turpitude clauses. His country club revoked his membership. Even his family, the ones who'd always taken his side at gatherings, began reaching out to me with apologies. We should have seen it, his sister Monica told me through tears. The way he treated you, we should have known. I'm so sorry, Luca. But apologies couldn't give me back 17 years. The trial began 6 months after the gala. Marcus, who'd once commanded every room he entered, sat diminished at the defendant's table. The expensive suits were gone, replaced by a simple gray outfit that made him look older, smaller, ordinary. I testified for 3 days, detailing 17 years of abuse, fraud, and control. Sarah had prepared me well, but nothing could have prepared me for facing Marcus across that courtroom. He told me I was nothing, I said, looking directly at him. Every day for 17 years, he told me I was worthless, incompetent, a burden. He isolated me from friends, controlled every penny, monitored every movement. He didn't just steal money, he stole my identity, my confidence, my life. Marcus couldn't maintain eye contact. For the first time in 17 years, he was the one who looked small. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, emails, recordings, witness testimonies from other victims. The contractor who'd finally been caught testified too, confirming Marcus's involvement in exchange for a reduced sentence. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, I felt something shift in my chest. Not joy exactly, but a loosening, like chains falling away. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. 22 years in federal prison. Restitution to all victims totaling $4.7 million. Marcus would spend the rest of his prime years behind bars, and when he got out, if he got out, he'd have nothing. Do you have anything to say to the victims? The judge asked Marcus. He stood, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd once loved, before the mask had become his true face. I'm sorry, he said, his voice broken. Luca, I'm sorry. Too little, too late. I didn't acknowledge his apology. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ash. The civil case settled out of court. Marcus's hidden assets, once uncovered, totaled nearly $8 million. Combined with the criminal restitution and the contractor fraud settlement, I received $4.2 million. From $50 a month to millionaire. The irony wasn't lost on me. 1 year later, I stood in the kitchen of my new restaurant, Phoenix, watching my staff prep for the evening service. The name was perhaps too on the nose, but it felt right, rising from the ashes of my old life. The restaurant had been Sarah's idea. "You love cooking," she'd said. "And you're brilliant at it. Why not?" Why not indeed? With my settlement, I could afford to do it right. A beautiful space in Charlotte's Arts District, top-of-the-line equipment, staff who were paid well above industry standard. The menu was mine, every dish something I'd perfected during those 17 years of dinner parties where cooking had been my only creative outlet. "Chef Martinez," my sous chef called. "The Washington party just arrived. They're specifically requesting the salmon with lemon butter sauce." The Washingtons, they'd become regulars, along with many others who'd witnessed my story unfold. But Phoenix wasn't successful because of my notoriety. It was successful because the food was exceptional, because the atmosphere was warm and welcoming, because every person who walked through the door was treated with the respect I'd been denied for so long. "Tell them it would be my pleasure," I said, already reaching for the salmon. My phone buzzed, a message from the support group I'd started for survivors of financial abuse. We met weekly in Phoenix's private dining room, sharing stories, resources, and hope. Tonight's meeting would have 12 attendees, including someone who just left their abuser after seeing my story on the news. "You saved my life," they've written in their initial email. "Seeing you stand up at that gala, hearing your story, it made me realize I could do it too." I hadn't saved them. They'd saved themselves. I'd just shown them it was possible. The evening service flew by in the controlled chaos I'd come to love. Orders flying out, compliments coming in, the beautiful dance of a kitchen working in harmony. This was what Marcus had tried to deny me, not just financial freedom, but creative fulfillment, professional respect, the simple joy of doing something well and being recognized for it. As the last customer left and my staff cleaned up, I stood outside Phoenix, looking up at the neon sign glowing against the Charlotte skyline. Inside, past the windows, I could see the warmth and life I'd created from the ashes of my pain. My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. "Hello? Is this Luca Martinez?" The voice was young, scared. "Yes. I saw your story. I'm in a situation. I don't know what to do. Are you safe right now?" I asked, already knowing I'd spend however long it took to help this person find their way out. "For tonight. But tomorrow. Then let's talk about tomorrow. And the day after. Let's talk about documenting everything. Let's talk about exit strategies. Let's talk about your Phoenix moment." Because that's what I'd learned in the years since I'd stood up in that ballroom and reclaimed my narrative. We all have a Phoenix inside us, waiting for the right moment to rise. Sometimes it takes 17 years. Sometimes it takes a public humiliation that becomes public vindication. Sometimes it takes discovering that the person who calls you worthless has been stealing from you all along. But when that moment comes, when the last straw breaks and the flames consume everything you were forced to be, that's when you discover who you really are. I talked to that scared voice for 2 hours, sharing resources, strategies, hope. When we finally hung up, they were crying but determined. "Thank you," they said. "Thank you for showing me it's possible. You're stronger than you know," I told them, the same words I wished someone had told me during those dark 17 years. Document everything. Build your case. And when your moment comes, because it will come, be ready to rise. 5 years have passed since that night at the Queen's Crown Hotel. Phoenix has become one of Charlotte's most celebrated restaurants, with a second location opening next month. The support group has grown into a nonprofit organization helping hundreds of survivors escape financial abuse. My story has been featured in documentaries, podcasts, and a Netflix special that just won an Emmy. Marcus is still in prison. He writes sometimes, letters full of apologies, regrets, and requests for forgiveness. I don't read them anymore. Sarah does, just to ensure there are no legal threats, then they go straight to the shredder. Some people deserve second chances. Some don't. I found love again, real love this time. Alex is everything Marcus wasn't, kind, supportive, secure enough to celebrate my success without feeling diminished. We met at a charity event for domestic abuse survivors, where they were volunteering as a counselor. They'd seen my story, knew my past, and loved me not despite it but because of how I transformed it into purpose. You turned your pain into power, Alex told me on our first date. That's the most attractive thing I've ever seen. We're getting married next month. The ceremony will be at Phoenix, surrounded by the survivors who become my chosen family, the staff who become my friends, and the life I've built from the ashes of who I used to be. Jennifer Morrison is officiating. She left her corporate job to become a therapist specializing in financial abuse recovery. You changed my life too, she told me. Watching your story unfold made me realize I wanted to help people, not corporations. The Washingtons are catering the rehearsal dinner. Agent Rivera will be there, now a friend who sometimes stops by Phoenix for the salmon. Even Jerome, the security guard from the storage unit, is invited. He'd known something was wrong all those late nights and had quietly made sure I was always safe. But the most important guest will be me, the real me, not the shadow Marcus tried to create. 45 years old, successful, respected, and free. So impossibly, beautifully free. Sometimes I drive past the townhouse where I spent 17 years. It's been sold, renovated, transformed into something new. Like me. The couple who lives there now has no idea what happened within those walls, and that's how it should be. The past is past. But I keep one photo from that life, just one. It's from early in our relationship, before the mask became permanent. In it, I'm laughing at something off camera, young and hopeful and unaware of what's coming. I keep it not as nostalgia but as a reminder, that person survived. That person endured 17 years of hell and came out the other side not broken but forged into something stronger. My name is Luca Martinez. I'm a chef, an advocate, a survivor, and a thriver. I have $4.2 million in the bank, a successful business, a loving partner, and a life that's entirely my own. Marcus was wrong about one thing and right about another. He was wrong when he said I was nothing without him. But he was absolutely right when he said, that night at the gala, that I trusted the wrong person. I trusted him. It was the best mistake I ever made. Because without it, I never would have discovered just how strong I really was. I never would have found my voice, my purpose, my Phoenix moment. To anyone reading this who sees themselves in my story, you are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not worthless. You are a phoenix waiting to rise. Document everything. Build your case. Find your safe people. And when your moment comes, and I promise you, it will come, spread your wings and soar. The view from up here is spectacular.